You're watching Behind the Screens. Grab some popcorn, fill up a drink, and take a seat. Our feature presentation is about to begin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you may be listening. Welcome back to another brand new episode of Behind the Screens. I'm Chris Chason, and joined as always is my co-host and best friend, Mike Lakewood. Mike, how you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing very well today, Chris, and I'm very happy to be back for another TV segment of Behind the Screens.
Yeah. Now, last time we did TV, we started off the Rooster Teeth series, RWBY. We meant to do Volume 1 all last week, but we decided to split in half, so we're going to cover the second half of the season today.
Yep, basically our original plan was to make 8 videos covering the 8 seasons of the series thus far, until I realized there's a lot to this series, my friends. And since this is our first serialized television series, rather than Batman the Animated Series being 109 random adventures, we figured that we would cover this series more in depth with a lot of summarizing, with of course some fun quirky facts in between, but of course we wouldn't want to bore you guys for more than 2 hours at a time, so we're going to split these into 16 videos instead.
That works. Alright, so where did we last leave off with Volume 1?
I believe we left off in Episode 5 after Team RWBY and Team Juniper had been formed following the Beacon Academy's first initiation.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact RWBY decapitated the head off a frickin' bird!
I know, which was amazing. Mm-hmm. And we had fighting that, they fought a giant scorpion, they got their team names, and we learned that the villains are working behind the scenes in the shadows, trying to take down the Kingdom of Vale. But of course, we'll all have to be aware of what's going to be coming all up in there.
Alright, let's get back into this.
Oh my goodness, yes we will, with Episode 6, The Badge and the Burden. The morning after the initiation, RWBY wakes up Weiss, who is having a very nice dream, by blowing a whistle in her face. That's obviously a great way to wake up in the morning. RWBY declares that as the team leader, that they have an order of business to do about their bedroom. They need to decorate it. And of course, it leads to a bunch of funny hijinks, which you can only find in animated series.
Yep.
Each of them arrange their belongings around the room, hanging up posters and paintings. It's also funny that the painting in their room is actually concept art for the series.
That is a little weird.
I thought that to be really cool myself. Which of course they have to do. They hang up posters, which is of course one of them is basically the crew of Achievement Hunter at the time, just drawn in 2D. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Achievement Hunter is basically the gaming faction of Rooster Teeth, but it's fun.
RWBY basically also slices off the damn curtains, which means they have to put the curtains back up again. That takes frickin' forever. Yep. And the scene which I will always never forget about this episode, Blake has erotica in her room, which I thought is so funny. That she reads erotic fantasy novels or something. Yeesh. That's so funny, called Ninjas of Love. Yeesh. I love that to death.
That's yikes.
However, the team soon realizes that they can't fit all 4 beds in their room. Maybe it's because it's such a tiny-ass room, you can't fit 4 people in it. You know, it's crazy like that. However, they all come up with a really great idea, minus Weiss, that they'll have bunk beds instead. And what do? They suspend the beds from the ceiling or stack books on top of them.
I guess it's one cost-effective way to do it.
It looks very dangerous, but you know what? For this anime series, it becomes very iconic very fast.
Yep.
Let me tell you that much. Basically, their next order of business is getting ready for class. Remember, because we're going to a school. We got to do the boring stuff, too.
Yeah. So how much time before class?
5 minutes!
5 minutes! We gotta move!
They all rush out to go to the class, and John's team follows right behind, too. I should probably talk about the school uniforms for a second. They have pretty decent uniforms, depending on where you look. Sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're brown for the ladies. And I'm thinking, the outfits, the student uniforms in this show never really caught my eye that much.
Yeah, same here.
They're basically just another skin that they put over the animated characters, mostly. Basically, they rush out the room to get to their first class. Seeing them leave, Galinda and Osmond watch the two dashing. I love Galinda is looking at her watch and tapping it. It's like, they're gonna be late again. It's like, I love that stuff. That's a Saturday morning cartoon right there.
In a way, yeah.
This is where we go to Team RWBY in their first class ever that we see, head by Professor Peter Port, played by former Achievement member, Achievement Hunter, Ryan Haywood. And
We'll
let
get
me
into
tell
that.
you, yo, Professor Port is awesome.
He is fun, yeah.
He is hilariously funny. Always telling silly stories instead of teaching lessons. I really do love that.
I'm sure more teachers need to do that.
Basically giving a long-winded lecture about the purpose of the class and how the kingdom and the other, Vale and the other three kingdoms are basically safe havens from the Grimm and the pursuit of being huntsmen. Basically, he then tells a long, drawn-out story that's really blah, 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 blah. Because this funny, like, Ryan is basically going to blah, blah, blah in the background while everything else is happening in the classroom seats. Describing how he captured a Beowulf by himself when he was just a boy. I swear to God, if they ever show Port as a little kid, he better also have... Okay, Port has a big-ass mustache.
Yeah, it's like it's very fluffy.
It's a very fluffy mustache. I bet you he had that mustache even when he was like 6 or 7 years old.
Really?
I swear he would have that mustache. During the story, Weiss becomes irritated because the fact that RWBY is not paying attention. In fact, nobody is paying attention. She's the only one taking notes in the class.
Nerd!
It's like literally, like RWBY is inattentive, she's disrespectful, and she's rude in many ways, balancing her school materials on one finger. In fact, she never does that ever again in the show. How does she ever balance everything on one finger like that?
Considering everything we know,
she doodles weird images of the teacher, picks her nose, and I really hate how the show zooms in on her picking her nose.
Cartoons do not do that anymore.
It's really nasty. Let me tell you, it's like, I love Monty as like a director, but sometimes he would pick the weirdest things to focus on.
Yep.
Let me tell you
Absolutely.
that much. However, then Port asks the class who there thinks that they're the most qualified to be a huntsman or huntress. Weiss immediately volunteers.
Of course she does.
And of course, Port asks her, well then, let's find out, shall we? This dude brought in a live Grimm from the forest behind the school in a pet cage and decides to sick it on Weiss to test her skills.
How he managed to do that without getting hurt himself is something we'll never know.
I, in fact, asked this to many of my other friends, and even they couldn't tell me. Oh my god.
I doubt it. I doubt someone at the RWBY crew would be able to answer that.
Yep. So basically, Weiss gets ready to fight the Grimm in the cage. First of all, Weiss in the first half of the episode is wearing her uniform to class, but then when we cut to the second half of the episode, she's in her average default outfit. How the hell did she change out of her clothes in the middle of class?
Mike, it's called limited animation budget. Remember that.
They couldn't be bothered to have her in her... They just switched the models without any notice about it. It's always going to bug me. So basically picking up right where it left off, Weiss... Yeah, it literally says it in the freaking recap. She's changed into her default outfit. But where? Oh my god. Okay, never mind. So Port uses his weapon, which is called Blowhard, by the way. Yeah. I love it. It's basically like a blunderbuss with an axe at the back. Yeah. It makes no sense how you fire that thing. But anyway, he cuts open the cage with it, and it is called a Borbatusk, which I really do like.
Makes sense since it looks like a wild boar.
Literally, yeah. Basically, it releases it into the classroom to fight Weiss. And of course, after basically RWBY is cheering Weiss on and telling her to do all these things, like, you're doing great, you got this. Weiss keeps telling her to shut up, that she's trying to focus. Your friend is trying to help you, and yet you're telling her to be quiet.
God, what a diva!
I know, it's crazy.
Or prima donna, whatever.
Okay, so basically the Grimm has locked her weapon in its mouth and tossed it across the room. She is unable to get to it at first, but after using her magic to deflect the monster's attack, she gets her weapon back, launches a counterattack, and defeats it by stabbing it in the stomach. An idea that RWBY gave to her, by the way.
Yep.
I should also... You know what? I'll wait until I see if the trivia is at the end before I tell you this part. So basically, Weiss defeats it, and Port says, "Yay, you did good. Remember to cover the assigned readings, and stay vigilant." The class dismissed, and Weiss storms out mad. Jean says, geez, I wonder what's with her. RWBY meets her in the hallway and tries to find out what's going on with her. Weiss tells RWBY that from the moment they met, RWBY has done nothing but act like a child. Well, Yeah, she's 15. Of course, Jesus. Like, she's basically just saying, "Ooh, RWBY can't act excited. Superheroes cannot be silly and nothing like that. You have to be serious and determined, otherwise you won't succeed." Spoken like someone who has had a book in their hand instead of a bottle from the day they were born.
Yeah,
Let me tell you this.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, and what cuts me hard is that when Weiss turns her back to her, says, "Osmond made a mistake bringing you here." And like, nothing hurts somebody's anxiety worse than her hearing from someone that they're supposed to be good friends that you're not good enough.
Yeah.
And it just shows Weiss is the kind of person who brings others down to make herself feel better, because she was about to fail. If RWBY had not helped her, she would have failed that assignment.
Cold-hearted much?
Yep, the two of them go their separate ways. Weiss is seeking out Professor Port for advice, while Osmond finds RWBY sulking in the hallways. RWBY begins to question if Osmond made a mistake about making her leader, to which he claims that is far too soon to tell. However, Osmond says a line that I will never forget as long as I live, that he's made more mistakes than any man, woman, and child on this planet. I wish I could say that he was being flamboyant, but needless to say, he's not.
Yeah.
He later admits to making all that stuff up, like making all these mistakes, but then he says firmly that making her leader of Team RWBY was one of the best decisions he had ever made. And I do love that. He's really good at building people up.
Yeah.
I was keeping them up, that's the problem. Basically says that if she does not perform at her absolute best, how can she expect to get the respect of her teammates and such like that? Meanwhile, Weiss explains to Port that she should have been the leader of Team RWBY. Port very much disagrees and said that he's worked with Osmond for many years and that he has never given him reason to doubt him. According to Port, Weiss has gotten everything she has ever wanted her whole life, and now that something she wanted has been given to someone else, she is throwing a massive temper tantrum. Yes, but as we later learn on, she hasn't gotten everything she's always wanted. In fact, her life is actually pretty goddamn awful.
Yeah.
Something that we'll later touch on once we get to roughly the end of the season. Basically, he goes on to tell her that instead of being angry at those in power for choosing somebody else, you should try to perfect the person you already are. Never try to be somebody you're not. Make the best of what you have. And it is a really interesting goal because you really only have yourself in this one life. Never try to model yourself after somebody else because you'll never succeed. Always be the best you can be. And it's very nice, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good message.
Yep. Later that night, Weiss goes back to the room and Yang and Blake are already asleep, and RWBY is studying in her bunk, which is right above Weiss's. Basically surrounded by a bunch of books and papers. However, she wakes up. Weiss, instead of yelling at her, basically asks her how she likes her coffee, and then gets her some coffee. Because I'm thinking, okay, we got progress. I like that.
We're getting there.
Basically, Weiss tells RWBY that she does think she has what it takes to be a good leader, just like she knows that she'll be the best teammate she's ever had.
There you go.
I think that's very nice. And a line that really has made me notice that the change of the season was coming. Weiss, before the episode ends, tells RWBY she always wanted bunk beds as a kid, which could tell you a little something about her family life, that she has siblings. We'll get to that at some point.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the day, Badger the Burden, after coming off the amazingosity that was episode 5, is a little bit disappointing since we are back to the basic structure of the season.
Yeah, but at least not a complete failure.
No, definitely not.
We're trying to get the other aspect of this series. We have fighting people, but they're also in training at a school, and you gotta have some school shenanigans, even though it gets a bit
tedious after a while.
That, and also that tends to be, the language seems to be a little bit Disney Channel at points.
Oh, you noticed that too, huh?
Yeah. I grew up with Disney Channel. It's easy to point out, but all in all, I think this episode, it's still okay. It has its moments, but like you said, it's sort of not as good as last time.
Yeah.
But it's still, I think it's at least a decent episode, and you can sit through it fine. So with rating that, with all saying that, I have to rate it maybe an 8. 8 out of 10.
Yeah, that's good. I would say that this is a very bare bones episode. We get the classic school shenanigans like the montages and the silly school lessons. I really do appreciate these things early on, especially since this would be one of the only episodes to focus on Professor Port as the series would progress. However, there is one moment in this episode that I do want to call out for a very specific reason that we won't immediately clarify on, but we will get to it eventually.
Yeah.
There is this. Okay, so I'm pretty sure everybody's aware that during the first 3 seasons, the main characters are underage. They're all 17 and under. There was a moment in this episode where Port, clearly someone who is in his 50s or higher, winks at Yang during his lecture. And that has always rubbed me the wrong way because we all get it. She's the most attractive character in the series female-wise. But this is really nasty. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
And it would only get worse, my friends.
Yeah.
But all in all, The Badge and the Burden is a really great stopping piece, a great way to slow the story down for a spell, get us to resolve some character points so we can move on to other things later. So I'll give The Badge and the Burden a letter B ranking.
Not bad.
Yep. Now let us go into what many fans of RWBY would clarify from Season 1 as being the Jean arc. And I would really wish we could skip this point of the season, but I know we can't.
Have to. And also, was that pun intentional?
No, everybody does it because it's so freaking dumb. This is actually... Okay, so... This is a point that I'd really like to clarify. Miles Luna has been writing RWBY since day one. He was one of the main creators, one of the guys who contributed a bunch of the show's ideas. But he has a knack of shoving Jean into the main focus of the series. The show is supposed to be about RWBY, but sometimes it's about Jean and his misadventures. And I really don't like it when that happens.
Why not?
Because Jean is not that great of a character.
Well,
because
I mean, you have point. I mean, he's not awful. I mean,
no.
He has his moments, and he will get better as the show goes on. He will get better,
but he's not the main focus. He is a B character. He is B Squad. That is what he is.
B Squad, interesting.
The episode opens up with Jean fighting the leader of Team Cardinal, Cardin Winchester.
Cardin is a jerk.
This dude is a freaking giant right here. Let me tell you.
Yeah, how tall is Cardin? Is he like 6'3" or something?
Usually they do have the heights here, but I don't see the heights right now. Right. I will say though, he's definitely over 6 feet tall. This dude is basketball level tall. This dude is crazy big. Anyway, they're fighting during the school sparring class. Opens up with the incredibly iconic line, "This is the part where you lose." It's like, this guy's actor is not really that good. Like, this guy's just saying the lines with barely any energy at all.
I know.
Basically what happens is Jean tries to fight back, but he's clearly outmatched. Cardin almost bashes his head in with his weapon. What is his weapon called again?
It looks like a hammer.
No, it's like a giant mace, I think.
Okay.
It's like a blunt thing. Apparently, his color is indigo, which, of course, I honestly could never tell that.
What?
Apparently, they don't... Oh, yeah, the Executioner. That's the name of his weapon.
Interesting name. Usually, the Executioner is like an axe weapon or...
But no, it's a big-ass mace, right?
All right, then.
Okay, so basically... as he blocks Jean's sword, Cardin tells Jean that this is where he loses. Jean refuses to give up, and Galinda calls the match before Cardin can severely hurt Jean. She points out that Jean is low on his aura, because, his body shield that comes from his body's energy, saying that in a tournament duel, if his aura drops into the red, he has to lose. So basically saying that Jean has been fighting this way for weeks. He's not been getting better fighting-wise. In fact, he's only getting worse. Basically saying that Cardin and everybody's whooping his butt 6 ways from Sunday, and if he doesn't get better, something bad is going to happen.
Could get killed.
And of course, Cardin doesn't give a crap if Jean lives or dies. He just looks awesome. To himself only.
Yeah, Cardin is just an egotistical prick.
I know. Basically, though, Galinda says something called the Vital Festival Tournament will be here at the end of the year. Basically saying that kids from all the other 3 kingdoms will be coming here to compete in it. Whatever that is, we'll get to it eventually.
Yep.
It's going to be a big-ass thing. The rival schools will come, and they have to support Vale to the very end. It's going to be great. However, and then later we cut to the cafeteria where Team RWBY and Team Juniper are sitting down. Nora's telling a dream that she's been having for about a month about her and Ren basically starting a business of selling Grimm skins for money. And the fact is, like, as I pointed out last episode, the rest of the series has the Grimm disappearing when they die. You can't collect their skins.
But this is different, though, because, remember, this is a dream. Anything can happen.
Yeah, okay, I suppose you're right. They're supposed to be right about that. Basically, it's going going to explain what really happened. Ruby and Pyrrha ask Jean if he's okay after Cardin's been bullying him since day one. Basically, Jean is, of course, denying it, saying that, he just likes to mess around and play games. It's like, spoken like someone who's writing a story who was bullied when he was a kid.
Probably. Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, they bring up all the times that Cardin has bullied him and show that it's bad. Cardin's knocking his books out of his hand, opening his shield as he's going through doors. He even fired him out of the rocket-powered lockers that the school has.
Oh, yeah, we forgot to mention this detail. So the students have their own lockers that launch their weapons, summons their weapons to them whenever they need them. Yeah. I mean, it's cool and all, but don't you think it's a bit of a...
It rarely gets used, once or twice at best. And I know we're probably spoiling stuff, but we're only clarifying this stuff for you guys ahead of time so you can go back and listen to it later. Yeah. So this is, of course, one of 3 instances where the rocket lockers are used. Cardin, who is taller than the lockers, by the way, pushes Jean in and launches him not far from the school, but he still launches him far from the school. Pyrrha says that if he needs help with Cardin, he could just ask. Nora wants to break his legs. Which is amazingly adorable. I love how even when Nora's being completely insane, she is such a cream puff.
In a way like Harley Quinn.
Yeah, but not crazy.
You're right.
Basically.
Yeah, because Nora's kind of crazy is bubbly fun crazy.
Yeah.
Harley's crazy is sociopathic crazy, but that's a whole other gig.
Jean basically brushes off saying that Cardin is mean to everybody, not just him. And then we cut over down the way of the cafeteria where they're bullying a faunus who is at the school, Velvet Scarlatina. And let me tell you, she's going to become a very important character later on, guys. I swear to God, let me tell you this much. She is a rabbit faunus, which means she has giant ears sticking out of her head.
And of course, because Cardin's bullying her, he's tugging on her ears.
Which is really mean, let me tell you. She's not doing nothing. She's just trying to eat her food.
Yeah, let's just say Cardin is not happy towards Faunus.
Yeah.
Is he from Atlas?
No, I'm pretty sure he's from Vale.
Oh, yeah, but also, he's not the big fan of the Faunus, is he?
No, but basically just, yanking on her, calling her a freak. And I just love how you're saying how laughing, pulling on her ears. Apparently to prove that the ears are real, Dick.
Wow, you don't do that to our Bun, you jerk.
Pyrrha comments on his rude attitude, and Blake mentions that he is not the only one. There's millions like him in the world. And of course, Yang brushes off saying, it must be hard being a faunus. Right next to Blake. We'll get to that. And of course, Jean then leaves the table, but Cardin is seen watching very mysteriously, like something bad is going to happen. I should also probably clarify that the title, Jaundice, I believe did I even mention the title of the episode?
I don't think so.
It's called Jaundice, based off the disease jaundice, which involves yellow pigmentation of the skin and even whites of the eyeballs. Basically, the term originated from the Old French, Jean, which means this episode focuses on Jean's ordeals. This episode is like a sickness to Jean. The bullying is getting worse and worse as it goes on.
Wow, I did not think of it like that.
Exactly. It could also focus about the state of being jaundiced, which means having prejudiced feelings arousing out of envy or resentment. Which, of course, is very interesting, I think. Miles and Carrie stated that Jean flying in a rocket locker in this episode was to establish the fact that a human could fly inside the rocket locker and survive the landing in it. Nice. So basically, it's just like when they had Pyrrha throw her spear at Jean, just to show that these things can happen and the characters would be fine.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yep. But of course, let us continue on with the plot and the introduction of one of my favorite characters in the entire damn series, history professor Bartholomew Oobleck.
Yeah, he's fun.
Played by Rooster Teeth founder Joel Heyman, who was known for his very infamous raunchy comedy whenever around Rooster Teeth. Let me give you an example. Women have it's like, I just love how he just clarified that for everybody, just shouting that randomly.
Hold on, that's supposed to be a joke?
Yeah, like just saying, like, okay, let me just break down to you quick, and then he said that. It's so funny. Let me tell you.
Well, that's interesting.
Basically, the trope of Bartholomew Oobleck is he's a very disheveled-looking a professor, but he was later labeled a doctor, and he takes that very seriously. He basically gives a long-winded history lecture about the existence of an island right off the coast of the Four Kingdoms called Menagerie. But I'm pretty sure that's not going to matter at all.
Yeah, it's probably just some one-off thing that nobody cares about.
Yep, basically telling the history of the Faunus helping during the Great War, I believe. Basically just saying about all this stuff, like giving a lot of exposition really fast. And it took me several watches before I realized what the hell he was talking about, called the Faunus Rights Revolution, also known as the Faunus War, when humans fought the Faunus.
Right.
Basically, he states the war began when humans tried to relocate Faunus to the island of Menagerie. When he asked the class if anyone has been discriminated against because they're a Faunus, Velvet raises her hand and he says it's dreadful, simply dreadful. Basically saying that this kind of ignorance breeds violence, using the white fang as an excuse. People have been discriminating the Faunus for generations, and now they finally feel it's appropriate to rise up and take arms against their white oppressors. I mean, their human oppressors. Oh my goodness.
Well, that's one way to put it.
Basically, when he asks if they known what advantage the Faunus took to win the war, Carden takes the opportunity to throw his homework at Jean and wakes him up. Oobleck, noticing that Jean has been asleep this whole time, decides to put him on the spot. What is the answer? John has no idea what the answer is. And this is very relatable, let me tell you this, because I've been put on this spot sometimes before. And of course, Pyrrha is trying to help him by giving him visual hints, but he takes the rings around her eyes as, binoculars.
Yeah.
Okay, that was actually funny. I'm not going to lie. That was partly funny. They ask Carden what the answer to the question is, and Carden says that it's easier that animals are easier to train than Leo's soldiers. That's why the Faunus were able to get the upper hand. It's because they are simple creatures. And of course, Pyrrha snaps back, criticizes his intolerant attitude, and of course correctly states the reason why the Faunus won the war: night vision. Faunus can all see in the dark, which I think this is a really excellent trait that I would love to see utilized many times in this series. If only it was utilized many times in this series.
It wasn't?
I'll bring up all the instances where I feel like they should have used it, but thankfully, to be fair, in recent years they have tried to use the Faunus night vision to more practical uses.
That's true, yeah.
But of course, then again, they don't really use it all that well. They try, but it never really lands. It's a very important plot point, and then this is just what happens. I swear. Blake chimes in and builds upon Pyrrha's answers, explained that the human general tried to ambush the Faunus in the dark, and they were easily defeated. Carden is made a laughingstock because of this, and Oobleck decides to have Carden and Jean do extra homework because of their intolerant behavior. Basically saying that after class, Oobleck says that he does not know what Jean and Carden's issues are. Maybe they're just conflicting male personalities, but whatever they have, it stops now. Regardless that they have both worked hard to get into the school, this school only accepts the best of the best, and the way they've been acting is not the best of the best, which means they have to be better than what they are right now. And of course, he assigns them more homework.
Of course he does.
Because that's the best way to show if your students are better than others. Just do all the homework. Oh my goodness. And of course, he rushes out of the room because the reason why Oobleck is talking 5 miles a minute is because he drinks 12 cups of coffee every day, one for every 2 hours. And I think that is absolutely hilarious. Oh my goodness.
That's about as weird as an ADHD powered squirrel saying, "I don't drink coffee."
It's like, yeah, exactly. Love that reference right there. Pyrrha decides to finally help Jean with his problem after Carden pushes him to the ground again. She takes him up to the rooftop to try and tutor him. However, Jean thinks that Pyrrha wants him to jump off the roof. And I'm thinking,
Whoa, what?
Yeah, he says, Pyrrha, I know I'm going through a rough time right now, but I'm not that depressed.
Whoa, that's a little...
Yeah, they joke about suicide in
That's a little dark.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny for like a minute, and then you'll kind of realize, maybe you shouldn't be joking about teen suicide.
I guess it's another moment where it's hindsight.
Yeah, definitely hindsight. Let me tell you that much. This season is full of hindsight moments. But
Ain't
then,
it
of
all?
course, Pyrrha decides to try and help Jean with his issue, to try and improve on his academic and fighting abilities. However, Jean says that he doesn't want her help, that he thinks he can do this by herself. Pyrrha says, but he made it to the school. It speaks volumes of what he can do. He's a natural. He's awesome. He
is a liar.
Yeah, he wasn't accepted into the school. He faked his transcripts to get in because he failed all the exams. Which of course says that he never passed any of the tests. He didn't do any of the training regiments. He was never good enough in the eyes of those that mattered. So he did whatever he had to get his foot into the door.
And cheating was that way?
Yeah, basically.
Good Lord.
Jean lied to get in because he wanted it to be more than anything to be like a warrior, like his father, grandfather, great-grandfather. They were great warriors. He wanted to be just like them no matter what the rules said.
He was trying to live up to expectations.
And trust me, when you're the only male in your family, that can be a big problem.
Oh, yeah.
That much. Basically, when Pyrrha insists that she can help him be the best person that he can be, that with teamwork anything is possible, Jean snaps at her and tells her that he needs to do this on his own, feeling that he would be inadequate if he can't do it by himself. He doesn't want to be the damsel in distress, he wants to be the hero. Heroes don't need help being heroes. And of course, Jean goes off on this big goddamn tangent saying, I'm done being the lovable idiot stuck in the tree while his friends fight for their lives. It was in this moment that I finally realized after multiple watches what another thing about Miles Luna that I kind of have to scoff at. Miles is an excellent voice actor.
He is, yes.
He's able to convey the best and the worst of Jean's lines with very genuine emotion. But it also showcases him as a writer. Like, I can show that I would guarantee it, he writes all the scenes that Jean is in.
He has to.
Because he wants to voice Jean the way he wants to. And sometimes he can go a little off the rails. Let me think, because in this moment, he's acting the hell out of this monologue where he's snapping at this person who is supposedly trying to help him. But no, the dialogue goes on for way too long and makes him seem very, very unlikable in this scene. Basically saying, ew, you can't help me because heroes are loners and I'm a loner. It's like, whoa.
Yeah,
you're the leader of a team. That is the absolute opposite of being a loner.
Yeah, and besides, as far as I know, heroes who work alone sometimes do get help from other heroes, and they greatly appreciate it.
Exactly.
Just look at Batman. You know how many times Superman saved his butt?
But not this dude. Nope. He then asks Pyrrha to leave, leaving her emotionally hurt by his harsh response. Naturally, how can things possibly get any worse?
Ooh, I know, blackmail.
Yeah, Cardin was conveniently listening from under the balcony and heard Jean say that he cheated his way into Beacon. Cardin blackmails Jean by saying that he'll keep his promise if he does all of his homework for him. Classic bully scenario. And let me tell you, Cardin is animated super weird. Let me tell you, his big jakey neck is the thing. His neck is as thick as a freaking watermelon. Let me tell you.
That's thick.
Exactly. And of course he has Jean in like a neck lock. And of course the episode ends on a very sour note and very unfulfilling. Let me tell you that.
Yeah.
If I have to say, Jean Dice is probably another one of those episodes that's probably my least favorite of the whole series. Let's see if I have anything else for this. I don't think I do. Nope, that's all the trivia I got.
This episode was just... What was this?
It was not that
a mess?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was, like I said, the Jean arc doesn't start off very well, because following Jean, we get just a bunch of whiny bullcrap that I could have just seen RWBY do, and she could have done her funny voice and made it all go away.
Yeah,
easily.
funny, adorable, having fun, ha ha ha, and then you got this, I'm like, what are we dealing with here?
This very cliched bully run storytelling is very anime-esque, because trust me, one of my favorite animes is Yu-Gi-Oh! Through all the many generations and stuff, it's had its ups and downs, but I love Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which is basically this show's first few seasons. A slice of life show where kids who play card games go to school to learn how to play card games better. And of course, I do like animes like this where the kids have to go to school and deal with misadventures. But this is just a little too real for me. Everything that was not with Jean basically was the highlight of the episode. I loved meeting Velvet and Oobleck. I loved learning more about the Faunus War and Menagerie. I loved all that stuff that would later become important later, but Jean's bullying subplot, I really don't like how it starts, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's just... it could have been dealt with so much better.
I know. Maybe with like your better writing, but nah, that would never happen.
But also, not to mention that joke.
Oh, you mean the suicide joke?
Yeah. Dude, look, just so for everyone knows, we do not condone suicide at all. It is a very serious problem.
Very, very, very serious topic.
It is very serious. It needs to be talked about more. And for another thing, it does not need to be made fun of.
Nope, definitely not. So at the very end of the day, I would say that like episodes 1 and 2 of this season, I put this episode at the bottom of my list of the 100 RWBY episodes, and would give this episode a letter C+ letter ranking.
Yeah, around there. If I had to rate it as a number, I'd probably make it like a 7.5, because it has potential. But there's some good parts there, but it's just outweighed by the not so good, and it's just blah, let me tell you. But thankfully, the Jean arc has a much more happier episode ending, which it actually leads into episode 8, Forever Fall. This one is an interesting one.
Okay, so the show is called RWBY, right? But 20% of the first season is devoted to Jean. I'm thinking it's like, man, you could have like resolved this in maybe one episode, but nope, you had to drill it all into a second one. The episode opens up with Pyrrha looking out the window while Nora is bouncing on the bed and Ren is cleaning his gun. They're asking why Jean has not shown up in the last few days or weeks and is like, getting back to his room so late every day. She expresses concern that they need to get to sleep before their field trip tomorrow. Pyrrha bitterly says that he doesn't need their help. He's a lone wolf. It's like, ooh, Jean, you better find a way to fix this fast, man.
Yeah.
And of course, Jean is outside the room listening in and of course realized the big mistake he's made almost immediately. However, RWBY meets him out in the hallway and of course has a very nice heart-to-heart with him. Basically says that he's failed his team because he's made so many awful mistakes and some very poor leading decisions. But RWBY tells him that he may have been a failure when they first met, when they got to the school, but he can't be a failure now because he has a team and their lives are now his lives. And I think that's very nice. You have to think about the bigger picture. You have to think of not just yourself.
Yeah, it's very motivational and really makes you think, man, I really got to keep an open mind about all this kind of stuff.
Exactly. RWBY goes back to bed after sharing with Jean the very same wisdom that Oobleck shared with her back in episode 6. And I do like that growing moment for RWBY. It shows that she's already a very different person from when the series began. And as you guys know me, I love character development.
Oh, don't we all?
Jean is left with even more doubts, though, wanting to go and explain stuff to his team before Carden calls him on literally what he'll joke about his Power Rangers communicator on the phone. Yeah, it's literally that noise, I swear. And Carden is calling him with some added orders on top of the project he already made him do the day before. Basically asked him to go out and get some wasps in a box. It's like,
oh no,
how the hell is he gonna get wasps in a cardboard box?
The better question is how he's gonna do that without getting stuck. Wait. I gotta remember. Animated series logic.
Yep. So basically, Jean does not get any sleep and goes out into the wilderness to go get the bees before school the next day. We go now to the Forever Fall forest.
Which is one of the coolest and most beautiful looking sets in this whole show.
Yep. It is now the second time we've seen it. Remember when we first saw it in Blake's promotional teaser. And it is also the last time we will see it as well. Big sad. Hopefully, we'll see it again if we ever go back to these locations later on.
Who knows?
So basically, Galinda is leading the field trip through the forest, basically on another teacher's behalf, Professor Peach. We never see Professor Peach, though, even though we know she's highly respected.
I kind of wish we did. Although, I like to imagine Professor Peach as kind of like Professor Sprout from Harry Potter. Loyal, kind, very helpful with this stuff. And not to mention the project is collecting sap from the forest, which is plant-related, and Professor Sprout was a professor of herbology, so same correlation, except I don't always imagine Professor Peach looking like a witch.
No. It is revealed that there are a lot of teachers at Beacon that we never see on screen, and they're only seen through the expanded universe material. Professor Peach, though, is the one that's highlighted the most, so hopefully we do see her one day. Basically, as Chris mentioned it, they have to collect jars of red tree sap from the trees for some reason. And then, of course, they say that there's Grimm all in the forest, even though we never saw Grimm in the forest before. Yeah. Basically saying to stay close to your teams, and if something bad happens, just run away as fast as you can.
Well, Well, I mean, fight or flight is always a good thing, so.
Literally, Galinda is here to make sure that they don't die, but after she introduces the lesson, we don't see her again in the rest of the episode. So it's
Are you sure these teachers are qualified?
I really don't think so, if I'm being honest. Like, one of them's addicted to caffeine, the other one loves to hear themselves talk. One of them just basically says nothing helpful, it's just vague and poetic, and Galinda just whips her weapon around and expect everybody to do what she says.
Yeah, that's just, oh boy.
Basically, Cardin makes Jean gather 6 jars of tree sap when there's only 5 of them there, which of course Jean is very confused by. Cardin has his sights set on humiliating Pyrrha for her actions in episode 7, showing him up to the entire class.
What?
And of course, I would have loved it if he called her what's that thing I called it? Blunder Woman. Yeah, that's the thing, because she looks like a Greek warrior.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, like that just irks me and confuses the hell out of me. Like, why does he want to humiliate Pyrrha? Just because she tried to help Jean? So what?
Well, no, because she appeared more intelligent than him, which means he has to make her look bad.
So basically, he just didn't want to get stood up by her.
By a woman, yes. Like, I'm pretty sure that's...
That's another tick on the many reasons why I hate Cardin Winchester, because seriously, this dude is a jerk.
Would you be surprised if I said that he's one of the poster people for the first season?
What?
I looked up on the... we'll actually be talking about this when we get through all the episodes, but Cardin is actually considered one of the headlining characters for season 1 only, which means he was important enough to the first season to warrant that kind of main character credit, but only for 1 season, though.
Thank God, I guess? I don't know.
He intends to have the extra jar of sap thrown at Pyrrha so that it will break and cover her with the sap, and then they will unleash the bees in the box that they found, and then they will presumably pin her until she's in the hospital.
Yeah, at least they followed science, right? Because bees and their siblings, like wasps...
They love sweet things.
Yeah, so jam, sodas, fruits... Probably flowers. Well, obviously flowers. Anything really that makes you go, oh, that's so sweet. And it literally just stabs you in the eye.
Yep. Literally, basically. However, the plan takes a ghastly turn when Cardin makes Jean throw the jar. Hit her with the sap, fool. And literally, like, Cardin says if Jean does not throw Pyrrha with the sap, then he'll tell Goodwitch and he will be expelled. Jean almost throws it, but at the very last second, he gains the upper hand of his consciousness, decides enough is enough, and throws the jam at Cardin instead.
Thank God.
The jam appearing on his armor, which is of a bird, which is of his symbol. The bird is bleeding, which I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and also, a weird animal fact from me, that's a reference to what is called a bleeding heart dove. He has a patch of red color on his chest that makes it look like that he's bleeding, so no predators can harm him.
Like this?
Exactly. You can't see it, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, not on the wings per se, more like on the chest, but there are times where I've seen it is on the wings, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it basically like a bloodied bird in the, like, basically the jam on Cardin symbolizes a wounded bird.
Yeah, I should also mention that I neglected to bring up the illusions behind Jean's team when doing the talking of the first half of season 1. I will definitely go firstly into Jean because it's plot relevant. Jean is based off of Joan of Arc, which of course is very nice when you realize that Cardin is based off the cardinal that burned Joan of Arc at the stake.
Really?
Yeah, so basically this story is like Joan triumphing over the man that finished her.
That's news to me.
Which is very cool.
That is cool. Wow.
Which is, of course, why Cardin's weapon's called the Executioner, because the Cardinal executed Joan of Arc.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
It's great, right? Okay, Pyrrha is based off of the Greek hero Achilles because of her amazing fighting prowess and her seemingly unbeatable ability to succeed in combat. Nora, because of her amazing hammer weapon that also fires grenades, which is amazingly awesome, she is based off the Norse mythological character Thor. And I'm pretty sure if you guys have seen behind the screens, you'll know how much we love talking about Thor.
Yeah, but this Nora's more Norse mythology Thor than Marvel Thor, if we're being honest.
Yep, and of course, Lai Ren is focused on none other than Mulan herself because of stuff.
Not the Disney version, right?
No, definitely.
No, like the actual Chinese fable.
Yeah, Bao Mulan. Right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, believe it or not, for the home media release exclusively, there was a scene that was added in specifically for the Blu-ray and DVD releases of this episode, meant meant to be like a bridging moment between them. A scene when Pyrrha hears Team Cardinal beating up Jean. Ruby comes out of the woods and basically says if she's okay. This was added in because something that we will probably gloss over in seasons 2 and 3, so we should probably get it out of the way now. Ruby and Pyrrha barely have any interactions with each other.
Yeah.
So basically they wanted to add in something because they knew what was going to happen in season 2 and 3, realized, maybe the main character should interact with Pyrrha more. So they made this one scene after season 1 was done.
Oh, we have our reasons.
Yep, and of course, Pyrrha here slurping. Nora has been eating the sap from the trees so that the kids can't fill up their jars.
Nora, what is wrong with you?
It's really adorable. Believe it or not, this is actually one of the few scenes when Pyrrha actually gets mad. There are
Pyrrha's one of those characters that rarely gets pissed off at anything.
And it's really goddamn refreshing in this show. But every character at some point gets mad about something.
Yep.
Let me tell you this, my friends. Okay, so Cardin then beats up Jean for throwing the sap at him, promises to beat the crap out of him for what he's done. Jean stands tall and says, "You can hurt me as much as you want, but leave my teammates alone."
Oh, yeah.
It's something that will carry over into the later seasons, which was a nice sentiment in season 1, but would get really old really fast.
Yeah,
Let me tell you this
you're
much.
sadly right.
Jean then mocks Cardin's attempts to intimidate him by smiling. However, when Cardin tries to punch him again, his aura kicks in without any extra help, showing that he himself is getting better at it. But then, of course, activates his power, amplifying his aura. This completely blocks the punch and instantly heals all of Jean's previous injuries. Cardin then decides to go into the finishing move when all of his other cronies start to attack him again. Suddenly, attracted by the smell of the broken sap jar, a massive bear grim comes out of the forest. And let me tell you, this is the biggest bear grim we've ever seen yet.
It's another Ursa, right?
Yeah, I like to call it the Mama Ursa.
Yeah.
It's like specifically for my sake.
Good nickname.
The Mama Ursa hones on Cardin specifically because of the sweetness of the jam.
Another reason why, because like regular bears who are attracted to honey, they're attracted to sweet things as well.
So good. Of course, all of Cardin's team abandons him because they're all cowards.
Yeah, cowards!
Running away. Cardin tries to fight the bear off, but other than being a powerhouse, the bear easily whips his weapon away and basically makes him the victim now. Showing that there can always be somebody bigger than the bully treating you badly in school.
Talk about retribution.
Instead of basically after being told of the situation by one of the members of Cardin's posse, Ruby, Pyrrha, and Weiss decide to go and check on Jean while Yang, Blake, Nora, and Ren go back to get Galinda. But then, of course, here's another criticism I have with this scene. Why are they going to get their teachers to fight one Grim when they are 8 teenagers heavily armed to the teeth? Let me tell you this much.
I do not know.
Exactly. Wouldn't it be much easier for them all to go so that they all could easily beat him? But no, they have to be stupid about it because they have to make Jean look good because Miles is trying to boost his damn ego.
Oh boy.
Let me tell you this much. So basically they all go there. Cardin tries to run away from the Grim but is knocked to the ground. Pyrrha, Ruby, and Weiss try to help, but then, of course, the Grim attempts to finally kill Cardin, but is blocked by Jean's shield when Jean actually saves Cardin.
Surprisingly.
Weiss decides to try and help, but Pyrrha tells her not to because Jean's got this. Yeah, the dude who failed every fighting assignment beforehand is going to do great against an Omega level Grim. That's exactly what's going to happen here.
He did hold his own.
Yeah, surprisingly, Jean does manage to fight the Grim off, but of course is making the same mistakes in the classroom as he is out here. However, after being knocked down twice, he checks his scroll and realizes that if he gets hit again, he'll probably end up in the hospital. Basically, both Jean and the Ursa charge at each other. However, Pyrrha notices that if Jean keeps going the way he is, he will die. Pyrrha finally decides to show her superpower and redirects Jean's shield to basically block the Grim's attack so that he can decapitate it like a boss. It's pretty darn cool the way that they do that. The way of the directing showing Jean's face and then the Grim's face, so epic.
It's clever.
And great. Let me tell you this.
Yeah, because Pyrrha's superpower, should we talk about it?
Yes. Basically, Pyrrha explains to Ruby and Weiss, who are completely surprised at what the hell just happened, that Pyrrha has the ability to manipulate magnetic objects.
Sound familiar?
Which is really crazy that she's able to manipulate stuff like that using the power of magnetism.
Yeah, but thankfully, unlike Magneto, she's a good guy.
Yep, basically, of course, it's also talked about that Weiss is able to use her glyphs and RWBY has incredible speed powers. Basically, Pyrrha leaves, but then Weiss and RWBY say, hey, shouldn't we tell them what happened? But then, of course, they think that, nah, they better much just let those two work it out, and then maybe something good will come out of it. Following the fight, Cardin gains a newfound respect for Jean, showing him that he's not the weakling that he once thought he had. And of course, after helping Cardin up, Jean orders him to never mess with his team or his friends again, or he will have him to worry about. Jean then walks away from Cardin, who looks both intimidated and apologetic, which of course would have been nice if we had seen more development from Cardin in the later seasons, but of course as of the release of this video, the end of Season 8, Cardin has no real development out of these 2 episodes. He mostly becomes a background character for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's sort of bittersweet when you think about it.
However, hopefully the next time we see Cardin in the anime, there'll be so many more amazing moments between him and Jean. Who knows, maybe even Cardin will sacrifice himself saving Jean in like a battle or something. I would love to see that.
Who knows?
The episode ends after they get back to the school and Jean apologizes to Pyrrha for being a douche nozzle. Basically,
Yeah, that's a nice word to put it.
she happily accepts his apology, then tells him that their friends miss Jean and they want him to come back, saying that Red made his delicious pancakes.
You might want to hurry quickly before Nora hogs the syrup.
Yep, basically it's revealed that Red is an amazing cook, just like Monty was very much a big fan of food. He'll be saying about how he loved to eat whenever possible because he was always working so hard.
Yeah.
He had to keep energized and all that.
Yeah.
Basically, before they go, Jean asks Pyrrha if she would still help him with his fighting techniques. In response, she makes a smile to the audience and then pushes Jean's ass down. Let me tell you, she then criticizes everything he did wrong because he should have blocked her attack. She helps him up and says, let's try that again, shall we? This episode is a good end to Jean's 2-part story.
Yeah, it's a nice little it was certainly an improvement over last episode.
Yeah, definitely.
But and the Forever Fall Forest is still an amazing set to look at.
Exactly.
All that red just
gorgeous. Let me tell you.
The humor was funny.
It was definitely a step up from episode.
Yeah, so the one stand-up being, I need you to go into the forest and put a bunch of wasps into this cardboard box. What?
Seriously? Oh my goodness.
But other than that, though, it's honestly a really good episode and shows John growing as a character because he's really unlocking his aura and his power, and he's really showing that he can overcome that, and despite the fact he lied.
Yeah, basically showing a lot of more depth to Jean's character that will definitely be built up on in all of the future seasons.
Yeah, because eventually the show is going to give these characters some actual character. Instead of just making them 2D, they're going to make them full 3-dimensional characters, like how this is a fully 3-dimensional anime.
Exactly, my friend. So basically, after all that, we have a very nice set piece, a very nice ending to Jean's story with Cardin, hopefully to be followed up upon later. A very epic fight scene, above average dialogue. I'd have to give Forever Fall episode 8 of RWBY season 1 a letter B ranking.
I agree. It's good and all. I consider it a solid episode. So for that, I would give this episode an 8 out of 10.
Okay, now let us go on to the second to last episode of RWBY Season 1, Episode 9, The Stray.
Oh, you're going to love this.
Let me tell you, folks, this is when the story would really start to pick up. We've mostly had single filler episodes, basically building up the characters a little bit, but this is when things really start to go off the rails. Let me tell you this much.
But in a good way.
Yep. Team RWBY decides to start their weekend off by walking through the city of Vale on a Friday while the city is getting ready for the Vital Tournament. Trust me, it takes months to prepare for a big festival such as this.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, Weiss basically says that they should go to the docks to basically visit all the ships coming in from all the different kingdoms. The ship from Vacuo has already arrived, but of course Blake knows that she just wants to spy on the competition so that they can win the tournament.
How dare you!
Basically says that correctly suspects that she just wants to examine it. RWBY notices that a nearby dust shop has been vandalized and robbed, kind of like the one in the very first episode where she fought Roman Torchwick.
Huh, ain't that a coincidence?
According to some of the detectives from the Vale Police Department, this is the second incident this week. However, they left all the money and only took the ammunition. I wonder what robbers robbing a gun shop would need with bullets.
A lot of things.
And that's the thing. The police do absolutely nothing and just blame it on the minorities. That's exactly what happened.
Kind of almost reflective of our police, almost.
I don't really want to say yes because that would probably implicate a lot of things.
That would, yeah. But I mean, would you say this police department is at least about more incompetent than the GCPD?
I would definitely say so because
the Gotham City Police Department can only has to handle with a vigilante. These guys, I don't know.
Basically, the cops suggest that the only thing that someone would need that much dust for is an army, and as such, they blame the White Fang for robbing the place. Well, and of course,
they're not half wrong.
Let's go get some donuts. It's like I love cops in TV. Let me tell you this much. Basically, though, this begins one of the biggest things about this damn show that I need to be talking about in depth with y'all, because you know how much we love to go in depth about things that really don't have any meaning. So basically, Weiss actually agrees with the cops and that it was definitely the White Fang, aka the minorities, that robbed the gun shop.
Yeah, let's just set this for now. There's gonna be some
tension.
Yeah, so if you're kind of triggered by this stuff, I recommend you click away now.
Yeah, basically Weiss agrees with the cops' suspicion, calling the Faunus group degenerates. This sparks a brief argument between her and Blake, the latter saying that they are simply misguided Faunus and that they're not criminals like the media portrays them to be. Blake eventually claims that the White Fang being the robbers does not make sense because this is not something that they would normally do, just rob a dust shop in the middle of Vale. Ruby agrees with Blake, suspecting that Roman Torchwick, due to him having attempted a similar robbery, but of course she foiled him at the start of the season.
Yep.
There's a very good chance that it was him, but of course Weiss still doesn't relent her claim that the White Fang are scum. He's saying that they only know how to lie, cheat, and steal, that those Faunus are no good. And of course Yang points out that she feels that is not necessarily true. And of course that's all Yang is going to say on this argument because she really has no idea what to say.
That is true, yeah. I don't think any of us would really do that.
Because Faunus only know how to lie, cheat, and steal, and then suddenly they hear a commotion coming from the dogs. Hey, stop that Faunus that's lying, cheating, and stealing!
I'm also stealing, but you know.
Yeah, I know. And this is when we meet a monkey Faunus named Sun Wukong.
Oh, Sun is an awesome character. He's essentially like Spider-Man, because he talks a lot.
He makes a lot of quippy jokes, quirky stuff going on.
It doesn't help that the fact that he's voiced by the one and only Michael Jones, one of the funniest Rooster Teeth employees out there.
Yep, definitely. And of course, believe it or not, Ruby's voice actress's eventual fiance and husband, they met on the set of filming this series and got married in between volumes of seasons 1 and 2.
How about that?
Which I thought was very nice. I know that I really should not divulge from the plot, but I'd love to share this moment. If you guys do not watch Rooster Teeth's content, one of the funniest stories I ever heard about Monty was when of course the Rooster Teeth founder Bernie Burns actually they were attending Michael and Lindsay's wedding, and Monty was talking to Bernie. And Bernie actually said to Monty, "You want some cake?" Pointed over to the wedding cake, which hadn't been cut yet. Monty said, "What kind of cake is it? Go check it out." Monty almost stole the wedding cake.
Oh my God!
Because he'd never been to a wedding before. And
what?
And I can't remember if it was Lindsay who told him to not eat the cake or if it was his wife who told him not to eat the cake. But
so either Lindsay or Michael told him not to eat the cake.
Yeah.
My best guess, Lindsay.
Yeah, Lindsay just slapped him away as soon as they saw it. Like,
no, don't eat the cake yet. Not until we cut it first.
You'd have to watch the story on your YouTube, but it showed just how laid back he was, how he was just a force of nature, Monty. So very enjoyable. Let me tell you that much. Anyway, Sun was found stowing away on the ship from Vacuo to get to Vale. He jumps onto the docks only to be pursued by the cops that was shown at the dust shop robbery. Sun throws a banana peel in one of the cops' face and it continues to run away.
So, this is a weird way to play Mario Kart or whatever.
I really gotta love his freaking yellow shoes. Let me tell you,
sweet kicks. I'll give him that.
And of course, when he gets up onto the sidewalk and runs past Team RWBY, he passes Blake in slow-mo and winks at her.
I'm like, what the heck are you trying to do, man?
That is adorable. I immediately shipped them the second I saw that. It was only a minor thing, but I knew that it was going to be enjoyable all the way.
Oh, yeah.
Weiss is led to believe that he is a participant in the tournament because, let's face it, he's a teenager just like them.
Yeah.
And, of course, leads her teammates to observe him. So basically, they chase him down the streets and into an alley, but they lose him when they bump into somebody who is standing in the middle of the damn road.
Yeah, but Mike, you want to take this one?
Yeah.
Because you know this one very well. We're about to meet another character, and I'll let you have to take the rest.
Yep. Yang informs Weiss that she's literally landed on top of somebody. She freaks out, stands right up, and the person, who is a red-headed girl with pale skin and green clothes, simply says this: "Salutations! This is Penny Polendina. She is my favorite character in the entire damn series."
She's something, all right. I made a prediction about her when I first saw her and the way she acted, but I'd rather wait.
Yep. Okay, so basically, Sun parkours away down the alley, which is honestly really awesome.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
After a very awkward introduction between Team RWBY and Penny, basically introducing themselves, she basically get-ups by doing like an anime superhero pose, stand up, and everybody's immediately terrified of her because she's overly friendly and kind of socially awkward. And of course,
aren't we all?
Yep, basically after a very awkward conversation where Penny's eyes bug out like crazy, they decide to turn around. RWBY calls Penny her friend, and then they leave her. And then they go and try to find Sun again, but for no reason at all, Penny is in front of them now, despite being behind them earlier. Now this will be a thing that I will bring up in probably the next video or maybe the video after that, but there is a reason for it. Basically, RWBY calls her friend, stand off, they walk up, Penny is shunned and given the label of friend, and then pursues RWBY, going really up to her saying, "You call me friend. Am I really your friend?" And everyone is saying, "Hell no!" No. But RWBY says yes, and she says,
I kind of wish, if she said yes, that considering this is an anime, I kind of thought Blake, Yang, and Weiss would like fall down like how they did in the early 80s, like with Dragon Ball, like,
and they do kind of.
Yeah, a little bit, but like, oh, what have you done?
Sensational. We can try on clothes and talk about cute boys. It's like, oh, that's adorable. I swear to God. And they make so many more funny jokes. The jokes in the last stretch of season 1 are the best of the whole series. Season so far.
Yeah, because some of this humor is funny. I mean, does it land on every beat? For me, at least. But hey, that's humor. It's subjective. Whatever. But it mostly lands.
Yeah. Penny says that she's here to fight in the tournament representing the Kingdom of Atlas. That she's quote unquote combat ready.
Oh, let that sink for a bit.
Weiss says that she doesn't look like a fighter, but she's literally wearing a ballet outfit.
Yeah, the exact words are, says the girl who fights in a dress. It's a combat skirt, thank you very much.
Yeah. And ow.
Sorry. But yeah, RWBY gives Weiss a high five there, and I'm like,
oh my
yes!
God. Basically, then they have a really funny interaction between her. Weiss says that if she's from Atlas and she's here to fight in the tournament, does she know anything about Sun? Clearly she doesn't. Weiss presents a very crudely drawn and semi-racist depiction of Sun, considering, already I really don't want to complain about this because Sun is an Asian character voiced by a white guy.
Whitewashing?
I really don't want to say that because Michael does Sun very well in
this
series.
That is true, yes.
I can't deny it, but I don't really mind it as much as I do other characters.
Yeah, there's a limit because we have issues. We'll get there.
Yep. Okay, so basically, Weiss makes even more comments about the faunus, which of course infuriates Blake even more, which soon devolves into another argument about race and politics and
here we go.
They start yelling at each other, which of course it's a very nice way to look at this. The conversation is very black and white, like Weiss and Blake, which I think is really awesome. Just looking at the argument from two separate points of view.
Yeah, and there's no gray area.
Nope. The only gray place is Penny, Yang, and RWBY. Yang suggests that they go back home. They should get out of here before it gets worse. Penny says, where are we going? It's like, oh, I love you. Thank God you're here.
She's too pure.
Then, of course, the girls have been arguing about racism for 5 hours. And completely arguing about it over and over and over again until finally the conversation comes to a really big head. When Blake accuses Weiss of being racist, Weiss claims that she's a victim too. And it's like, yeah bitch, no. Well, I mean, okay, I cannot disregard her feelings on the matter. Yes, she is racist, but she is also a victim of the White Fang's actions, basically surprising Blake into silence. She goes on to explain that her family's company has been at war with the Faunus for as long as she can remember. Its members have killed numerous family friends and board members, stolen materials for the company. She also mentions a particular occasion involving an entire train of dust being stolen. Kind of like how Blake was going to steal a train of dust with Adam in her trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
If you remember that last video, we talked about that. Yikes.
Exactly. It all comes back together, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Basically, furthermore, their actions have infuriated her father so much on numerous occasions, causing her to have a very rough childhood. No doubt her father took all of the frustrations that the White Fang caused his company out on her and her siblings.
Which is not great. Basically, Weiss has an abusive father.
Yep, and of course the scene gets really heavy really fast. Let me tell you, Weiss angrily tells Blake off that she despises the White Fang because they're liars, thieves, and murderers. The world would be better off without the Faunus in general. Blake lets the emotions get the better of her and says that they were tired of being pushed around. She said they, like she's with them. And as we let the scene set in with no dialogue or music at all, Blake uses her semblance to dashes out of the room and out into the darkness. Ruby and Yang try to stop her, but of course Yang tries to make Weiss feel bad, which she should. Jesus Christ, Weiss. This is unbelievably awful of you. How could you insist that a minority group, has suffered less than you, a privileged white person?
Yeah, Doc, this is heavy.
Exactly. Blake runs out into the courtyard, and I'll say this, one of my best moments of undoubtedly the whole season, probably of the whole series if I really wanted to look in depth about it. Blake runs out into the courtyard to the fountain that's shown at the beginning of every intro in the opening theme song. Basically, she goes there and sees the statue of the huntsman conquering the Grimm. Basically, the very thin line between hero and monster. Blake is unsure of which one she is, and the audience finally learns why. Blake takes the bow off of her head that she never seems to take off even when she's sleeping for some reason.
Can I say that?
Yes.
Yeah, so Blake removes the bow out of her hair, and we finally see that she is a Faunus. She has cat ears.
Yeah, which I'm thinking to myself, oh my god, she's been one of them this entire time. And I'm thinking how blown away I was, where I figured, I guess I kind of figured that. Oh my goodness, which would totally make sense when she looks at that statue, but I'll clarify that in a second. Sun's voice is heard behind her, seeing her take the bow off. And of course, we cut to the next morning. Blake never came back to the room. 2 days later, she is sitting at a table with Sun in a cafe in downtown Vale, where she responds to Sun of wanting to know more about her. But that will have to wait till the season finale. Needless to say, The Stray is the best episode. Well, I mean, not the best one. Maybe the second best episode of the series so far.
The whole show?
No, the season.
Just the season.
Yeah, the second best episode of the season.
I get that, because this episode, when you look at it, it's very almost reflective of the world today when you think about it. Because the fact of the matter is that this episode subtly talks about discrimination and racism.
It really does go to show how young people handle these kinds of topics and how their respected upbringing forges the people that they will no doubt end up becoming.
Exactly. X-Men kind of was for the X-Men anime series in the 90s was kind of for the adults, and so are the X-Men movies. This is more for the teens and the younger demographic to really think about how race is dealt with in the modern world and how racism can still become an issue to this day.
Absolutely. So in the director's commentary of this episode, Miles and Carrie state that the significance of Blake staring up at the statue after she runs away is that she wants to be a hero, but they slay monsters. So where does that put the Faunus?
That is true. Even though the Faunus, they may look human, but they have their animal abilities, like animal traits like the Grimm. It is a weird fine line. The Faunus is sort of like the gray area, because you got humanity, Then you got the creatures of Grimm, and then you got the Faunus in the middle that's a little bit of both, which makes you question, what do we do?
Exactly. This episode marks a significant turn in the series' tone for the years to come. Because as you've probably heard me and Chris rambling on for this entire podcast, it was about RWBY and her misadventures, then it was about Jean and his misadventures, but now it's about finding out Blake's past and all the stuff that Roman Torchwick has been doing behind the scenes. The plot seems to finally be picking up, but that's not necessarily the case and won't be so for a while.
Yeah.
So basically, I'll say that this episode had a very strong story with funny, quippy lines that still get me every single time, introduced lovable characters that we'll be following for the remainder of the series, hopefully, and of course showcased some really nice set pieces, some really excellent topics about racism in like a youth culture of today, and really set up what's sort of be a superb finale.
Absolutely. So overall, with that said, me personally, I have to rate this episode as a really interesting episode to look back on, and I give it a 9 out of 10 with no question.
I give it a letter B ranking, personally.
What?
Yeah, only a B. If it was a little bit polished in some areas, maybe I would have given it a B+, but as is, I'll give it a B.
Okay, that's fine.
So now, without further ado, my friends, you've sat through 2 videos of us doing this already. We've come to the Season 1 finale of RWBY, Black and White.
Ooh, yeah, this one's gonna be good.
The episode picks up where episode 9 left off, with Sun and Blake sitting at a cafe, with Sun holding his teacup with his tail, which is very awesome.
Yeah.
Basically, Sun celebrates that Blake is finally talking to him for like the first time, and she tells him that she used to be a member of the White Fang, which is absolutely nuts, but of course we already know this from seeing her trailer, that she was Adam's right-hand woman.
Yeah.
But she then admits that she was one of them for most of her life. In fact, she was born into the movement, which of course is honestly crazy that she's been a member since birth.
That's crazy.
She then explains her past with the White Fang and its origin, starting by noting that one could say that she was, of course, born into it, like I previously mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
She continues by saying that the Faunus rights revolution that Dr. Oobleck stated in episode 7, that the White Fang was created as a symbol of peace and unity between the humans and the Faunus. However, despite being promised equality when all the fighting was done, specifically of the Great War of many decades ago,
right,
the Faunus were still treated as second-class citizens, and so the White Fang became the voice of their people. Ever since she was young, Blake stood with them at every picket, every boycott, every rally from the second she could walk and talk, holding up a pickup sign instead of a rattle. I'd like to think of that. Basically, however, 5 years ago, their leader was replaced by someone with more violent and radicalistic ideas. Trust me, we will eventually see who these former and current leaders are, but it would take many seasons before we get there.
And a lot of issues.
Yeah, let me tell y'all that when we eventually get there. Their new leader replaced the old one's peaceful protests, Dr. Martin Luther King, with organized attacks and arson and burning shops that refused to serve them, hijacking trains for businesses that used Faunus labor, Malcolm X.
Yep.
She states that these methods have been working, but the equal treatment the Faunus had gained was through fear rather than respect.
Here we go.
Hating what the Faunus had become in the ranks of the White Fang, she left Adam and everything behind and decided to use her skills to become a huntress instead. And of course, she's been a criminal this whole time, hiding in plain sight with the help of a little black bow.
Makes sense.
It's such a nice story, but it's... Okay, here's one criticism that a good friend of mine has pointed out as we dissect the series for fan content. Why is Blake telling Sun, who is also a minority, the history of minorities in this universe? Wouldn't Sun immediately know how the Faunus rights revolution happened if he too is a member of that same, race group? Because I feel like he should, because in this new age of technology, he could have just Wikipedia'd that.
Well, yeah, but to be fair though, let me counterpoint that. I've got to considering the fact where Sun grew up. I don't think he was fully exposed to what the White Fang did.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so, because, Vacuo is the least connected of the four kingdoms.
Yeah, and as far as I know, the people of Vacuo don't really hate the Faunus.
No, they probably hate them the least out of everywhere.
They sort of see them on equal footing, but they're like just like an inch away from that.
Yeah, basically, I would say that the Vacuo is the least prejudiced against the Faunus, Vale is in the middle ground, while Mistral and Atlas are the worst of the bunch.
Atlas is worse. Mistral does handle it a little bit, but...
Yeah, but it goes still like that. So basically, Blake tells him all of this, and Sun says, why didn't you tell your teammates this if you really wanted to get it out in the open? Probably because Weiss is a racist, and she wouldn't have understood if she had come out. Meanwhile, the rest of her team have begun searching the city and have been doing so for hours. RWBY and Yang are constantly looking for Blake while defending her and want to hear her side of the story. Weiss is shocked by the thought of her family's enemy being so close to her and right under her nose. And of course still sees Blake as a criminal and someone who should be arrested by the police.
Good Lord.
Dear God, woman. Even in the best episodes you seem to be awful.
What is wrong with you?
Basically, of course, they get the idea to locate her and then find out more, but then Penny appears out of nowhere again. She then she then pops up out of nowhere, scaring a lot of them. RWBY then tells Penny that Blake has gone missing, and Penny pledges to help them search, even though they really don't need her help. And of course, RWBY asks her friends what they should do next, and of course, they're gone. I once made the joke in a team meeting with my RWBY pals saying that maybe they got snapped away. Like, I joked about that.
Really?
Yeah, it was a bad joke. But I do like how there's a tumbleweed that appears back and forth in the scene. Penny says, it sure is windy today. Like, I love that.
It's so breaking the fourth wall. I like that.
And literally Penny is very observant, just like Sun is. She picked up that Blake was a Faunus almost instantly too. The cat ears. And these dum-dums only now point out that, yeah, she has ears, and you've been living with her for months and you never noticed.
Well, I mean, maybe when Blake was around them, she never took off the bow.
Yeah, I know. She was very careful to even sleep with it on, like literally. And literally, it's all made better when RWBY ad-libs she does eat tuna a lot. That was Lindsay ad-libbing that.
That was an ad-lib?
Yeah.
Oh, man!
It's funny as heck. I wish that they would ad-lib more in this series, honestly. Let me tell you this. Okay, so then Weiss and Yang go to break off to try and find Blake, while Penny and RWBY also go off to try and find Blake as well. Meanwhile, Sun and Blake formulate a rather paced-together plan about how to find the White Fang in the city, basically saying that they should go to the place where the White Fang is most likely to rob and then not find them there. Right?
Well, I guess.
And then, of course, we cut back to Weiss and Yang checking out many shops, states that she is afraid of what Blake will say when they do find her, noting that those who are innocent never run from the police. Not always true. Innocent people run all the time.
Yeah.
I can tell you that much. Basically, after hearing this, Yang is very not cool with Weiss right now, which is never really explained away. There's a lot of never explained between seasons 1 and 2, and I will get to this when we get to the end of this one.
Yep.
RWBY is alone with Penny and tries to explain the situation, but Penny struggles to understand these human emotions and stuff like that. They're basically trying to understand that if Weiss and Blake are friends, why are they mad at each other? And it's very complicated because teenagers are complicated.
Yes, they are.
Penny says that she doesn't have a lot of friends, but if she did, that she would talk to them about anything that was bothering them. And RWBY very much agrees with that. And it shows that they do have very nice chemistry with one another.
Yeah.
I do appreciate their scenes very much. We then cut to the night when Blake and Sun are staking out a Schnee Dust Company loading place, basically where all the dust would get loaded off after it was delivered taken from Atlas. Sun stole her some apples and gleefully says, "Hey, weren't you in a cult or something?" Oh, I love the look Blake gives Sun. It's just like, I will rip your tail off if you say one more word.
Oh my god.
It's so funny. But then, of course, an airship does land in the dock area, and the White Fang get off the airship, basically showing that Blake does admit that Sun was right, that she did believe that the White Fang was behind the crimes, but she did not want him to be right. It's like she didn't want to believe it, but it is what's happening.
Absolutely.
We finally see Roman again as he steps out of the airship and then orders the White Fang members to do what they say, calling them animals and beasts. So I do really like that thing about Roman's character. He is equally as prejudiced towards the Faunus as most everybody else. It's very real world and very natural. Basically, knowing that the White Fang would never be ordered around by a human, Blake then goes in half-cocked to try and get information. She then proceeds to take Roman hostage by putting her knife to his throat. The only time where the F word is almost dropped in the series, which I'm thinking, I would have loved it if they would have gotten some raw emotions like that. But of course, maybe it would have clashed with the rest of the tone of the series. And then of course, she takes off her bow and calls out to her faunus brethren, saying, why are they helping this human? Why are they doing these bad things? And they all look at each other, kind of like confused, like, maybe she's right. But then, of course, Roman gives off more of his delicious villain monologues. The White Fang and I are going in on a little business venture together, one that's guaranteed to bring the house down. And of course, before Blake can find out what's going on, more airships arrive. And of course, Roman gets his frickin' cane and blasts her away.
Ba-boom!
Which of course leads to one of the best fight scenes in the entire goddamn series, where of course Sun and Blake tag team Roman to try and take him down. Roman is one heck of a fighter.
He is, yes.
It's especially considering this is something that I probably should drop in about in the later seasons. Roman is one of the few characters in RWBY that does not possess a superpower. The dude basically is so arrogant as in saying that he never needed a superpower, calling them a crutch. And that if you can't fight without powers, you really shouldn't be fighting at all.
Yeah.
And of course, it's really a smart way to think about it, because with his cane and superior agility, he's able to dodge all of the blows that Blake and Sun throw at him. It should probably already be mentioned that Sun's weapon is a bow staff. And let me tell you, it works so well with his very Asian aesthetic. You know what I'm saying? It's like those nice designs.
Yeah, the bow staff is cool to look at too.
Very, very nice, I have to say. Basically, and of course now we have to mention Sun's weapon. His bow staff becomes nunchucks.
Oh yeah!
And those nunchucks become gunchucks. Basically, those bow staff, nunchucks, the nunchucks become guns. It's so
very versatile
amazing.
Weapon.
It's so great.
Yeah.
That was the moment when I was in my seat, clapping at the screen. It's like, I want more of this. Yeah. It's such an intense thing too. It's like Blake is trying to charge Roman with her shadow clones and everything, but he dodges every single attack until finally they're able to knock him down. But of course, finally, Roman then shoots down a hanging shipping container, which of course they have to dodge out the way of. Sun is then cornered by Roman's weapon before Sun can be killed by Roman, though. RWBY and Penny come out badassly on the top of the containers, having heard all the explosions and stuff.
Yep.
He says, hello, Red. It's like, I love how this shows that it's finally time, bookending the story of when Roman and when RWBY first fought.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, Penny says that, RWBY, are these people your friends? She tells Penny to get back, but of course Roman takes this time to blast RWBY with his weapon, blowing her away and giving a big
Typical.
And of course Penny will not take any of this lying down. And what she does, she goes up to fight this dude. And I'm thinking, no, he's too powerful. All she says is, I'm combat ready.
And, well, explain the weapons.
So, Penny has a backpack that is very versatile in many of her fights. What emerges from the backpack is some of the best Atlas tech I have ever seen. Swords come out of her backpack attached to wires.
Oh, yeah.
It is so freaking sweet.
It's awesome to watch too. Like the way it's animated when they emerge out of her pack, it's amazing to look at.
It really is awesome how she manages to wipe out the White Fang soldiers with her slicing of her swords like they were nothing. She even takes down the freaking gunships with apparently using the sword's energies to shoot laser beams from the sword's tips. And it is really amazing to look at. I can't even tell you what amazingosity it is. RWBY is blown away by how well Penny is fighting like this.
I know.
Supposedly, as of course, you guys remember that RWBY loves weapons. Well, Penny seems to be a living weapon. We'll get onto that later.
Oh, yeah.
I should also mention that Penny's weapon alludes to her storybook connection. She has strings connected to her back that, of course, act as her weapon. Penny is based off of Pinocchio, which I'm thinking is pretty funny because she's fighting the RWBY equivalent of Pinocchio's evil friend from that story.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty darn cool, not gonna lie.
It is nice. I guess.
The fight then ends with basically Roman retreating into one of the gunships and swearing that he'll return. Just like a regular Saturday morning cartoon. Yeah. I really gotta love it.
Yeah.
After all the fighting has gone down at the docks, the cops question Blake's son, Penny and Ruby, before Weiss and Yang jump back into the story to try and wrap things up. Weiss and Yang come back in. Ruby tries to resolve the conflict before they fight again. Weiss simply states that they've been looking for her for 12 hours. But in that 12 hours, she's had time to think and come to a decision about her and Blake's relationship, that she doesn't care if she's a Faunus or not. She said that she's not with the White Fang anymore, but she makes her promise that she doesn't care about her past. She doesn't care about any of it. She's going to forsake all of it for the sake of their continued future together. But says that the next time something this massive comes up, that she talks to her friends instead of running off into the night with a dude who wears only open shirts and open-toed shoes.
That's fair, I guess.
That's very good stuff right there, and I do kind of find it funny. Ruby shouts, "Yay, Team Ruby is back together! Yay, an ending, yay!" And then, of course, everything tries to wrap up nicely, but Penny has disappeared when none of them was looking.
Oh, great, she pulled a Batman. Where'd she go?
We then see her in a nearby limousine being talked to by the driver, saying that she shouldn't have been going around poking her nose where it didn't belong in a strange city, and that her time will come. But we don't know what the dude is talking about. Who is Penny connected with? Where did the White Fang go? Where did Roman go? Are any of these relationships going to be resolved? Well, we have to wait till next season.
We'll get there, but
basically, to wrap up the episode, Osmond has been watching the group ever since they got into the city last episode via security cameras he's placed throughout the entire city.
Because of course he did.
Yeah, he is the man behind the curtain after all. He then receives an email from Ruby and Yang's Uncle Crow, who we heard about in the first episode, saying that Queen has pawns. Who is the Queen, and who are her pawns?
We'll get there.
And then of course, we have a very rare thing for the series, because this is the end. The end credits are playing right now. This is actually the only time where the end credits background is not darkness. It's actually showing a night scene of Beacon Academy, which I really do like. I wish that they had done more like images behind the credits, but of course, then again, it may have been hard to see the white words against the background rather than just
that is
black.
true. Yeah.
Yes, and then of course we cut to the post-credit scene, because just like Marvel and DC, every RWBY season ends with a scene after the credits are done.
Makes sense.
We see that Roman has retreated back to his hideout in defeat, only to be met by the woman we saw in the first episode that was piloting the airship. Her name is Cinder Fall. Played by cosplaying YouTuber Jessica Negri. And I have to say, she is a very beautiful woman. She has an incredible figure for posting all the cosplays she does. Very, very gifted with making new costumes every month. Let me tell you that. Her acting ability, though, well, we'll get to that in a later season.
Yeah.
She is joined by her disciples, Emerald and Mercury, or better yet, the cardboard cutouts of them, since they didn't have the models finished yet by the end of the season. We will get to more about them afterwards. Roman blames the failure of the plan on the stupid mutts from the White Fang, but Cinder says that he will continue to work with them for as long as they say, because she has big plans for him. All she has to do is fall in line. And with that, the season comes to a close. So basically, all in all, this finale is great.
It is, yeah. It's a nice bookend without having to look forward to the future just yet.
Exactly. It really does go to show that everything was really setting in stone very well. The fight between Roman and Sun and Blake is amazing.
Yeah, the final fight in general is just amazing to watch.
Indeed it is. Even though a lot of the plot-related stuff with this episode is either really long exposition that we really didn't need, or you'll just stuff to showcase, hey, the characters are doing stuff while Blake and Sun have all the interesting story. They couldn't fill out 15 minutes with Blake and Sun fighting because there wasn't any real story to go around. I do give this episode a lot of passes because of how quick the editing is and how awesome the fighting is.
Yeah, I get that.
Like, I do like where it's going. But there is one moment that has been brought to my attention that I simply can't ignore, that the whole series becomes affected by these last 2 episodes of Season 1. You can't take back racism.
No, you can't.
It's something that you simply can't do. And in the later seasons, Weiss's racism towards the White Fang is completely forgotten and forgiven by everybody involved. That's very unrealistic. The fact that Weiss blatantly showcased to someone who has suffered their entire life because of people like her and her father, basically saying that she suffered just as much as them.
No, she didn't.
I get that your dad hit you. I understand that. But living in an abusive household is a far cry from the racism and prejudice that people of color have suffered for hundreds of thousands of years.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you that. If any white person today claims that they're victims too, we have no goddamn right to say that.
No.
But of course, and that's something that happens in the later seasons of RWBY. As I said, Weiss's racism towards the White Fang is completely dropped because they realized we may have made Weiss too mean in this season, and she's supposed to be a likable main character. So they cut her meanness in half. They found a good medium, but her establishing scenes are her of being annoying, privileged, just all around unwatchable. And let me tell you, I do love Weiss. I love her
me too.
very much.
It's hard to sometimes, but
I can't forgive her opening actions. And it's stuff that maybe during the final episodes I will finally forgive her for the harsh words she spoke to Blake. Because let me tell you, in all the discussions I've had with my friends, none of them buy the recollection at the end. When
I first watched the show, even in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, girl, you just outright said racist remarks. And even later in the show, when it's not brought up, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, there's that one dark spot that she still got that in the back of her. She still had that a while ago. And I'm thinking to myself, oh dear God.
You want to know what they probably tried to do? This will be our closing argument before we get to the closing thoughts. Basically, how they made Weiss get the most character development to offset the fact that she started at the bottom of the barrel in the first season. The other characters are sidewined to give her and Jean's story when everybody else should be getting equal development, but they really don't.
At least with future seasons, it's kind of fixed.
No, kinda, but not really in some cases, my friends. I will tell you, I think that season 1... before we have to give our last rating on this episode first. We did say the fighting was great, the jokes were fun, the ending was fine. The recollection and ending is a bit worrisome, but it did give me enough to want to see the next season
same
afterwards. Here. But I'll give this finale a B+ letter ranking.
It wasn't as good as last episode, but it had its moments to keep it going, and it was a solid way to end this season to get us going into Volume 2. So with that, I'll give this episode maybe around an 8.5 out of 10.
Yep, and now that we fully finished Season 1, a few closing sentences before we wrap up for tonight. Season 1 is my least favorite season of the entire series.
Really?
And I have to say, I really wish that it was just the animation that was off-putting. In fact, when I first watched this show, I thought my computer was exploding because of how bad the animation looked. But then I just found out, that's just how it is. But of course, my eyes adjusted to it over time. The animation quality is definitely a big factor of what's going on, because even though it does lead to some really funny and memeable moments, there are a bunch of other things that are going on. The writing is clunky and the exposition a bit tiresome at times. However, since all 10 episodes round out just under 2 hours, it's really not that bad.
No, it's
then,
not.
Of course, the characters are really likable, very colorful, very unique, and I love the concept of the show. Teenagers dealing with fighting monsters as an allegory for fighting the troubles that ordinary teenagers deal with in the real world. Weiss deals with the problem of living up to a great name and wanting to fix your family's legacy, while also living on top of a mountain of white privilege.
Yeah.
Blake is obviously trying to fight the injustices that have befallen her people, while also trying to bring honor back to them because of the actions of the White Fang.
Exactly.
Yang is, we really don't get much from Yang, except she's all about the party. Like, about the money, then I'm going to ignore it. You know what I'm saying? She's all about having the life of the party. She's all about having fun and enjoying life, but we'll get a lot more out of her in season 2. Let's just say that there's a lot more to her than a big bushy thing of blonde hair on her head.
Oh, yeah.
And RWBY, well, she wants to be a huntress, but she doesn't want to be special. She wants to just live her life like everybody else would, but it's becoming more and more apparent that that's simply not going to be the case with all these different shenanigans going around.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I do have to give credence, though. Like, there are just enough good episodes of this I do think season 1 is good, but out of everything RWBY has done, the biggest faults are mostly accumulated in here.
I can see that.
They will get so much better over time.
Right, but unlike Mike, I find Volume 1 to be sort of in the middle amongst the other seasons. It has to be fair though, I can forgive more of it, but I will admit though, some problems do sneak up there, and it kind of holds it back for me. And like Mike said, some of the writing is a little clunky in my opinion. It's not great, and I feel like with a few tweaking, it could be a bit better. But as of now, overall, if I had to give Volume 1 as a whole a ranking, I'd say it's at least okay, and maybe give it like a 7.5 out of 10 overall.
I would give it an 8 out of 10 overall. I would give it a good ranking. Definitely could have been better, but Lord knows it could have been way worse. In fact, I'm so glad I continued to watch this series even after this season. Even after my doubts, I was fully rewarded with Season 2, which we will get to you guys in a couple weeks. Don't worry, we'll have even more amazing things to say about that. Next time, though, we're back to the DC Cinematic Universe for its 4th installment with 2017's Wonder Woman.
And finally, a good one for them.
I know, right?
Yeah, when was the last time we had a good one? Man of Steel?
Man of Steel was decent at best, and that was the best that these films were doing.
Yeah, but now we're going to get into good territory. But that's it for now. We'll see you guys next time on Behind the Screens. Until then, I'm Chris.
I'm Mike.
And we hope you guys have a great night. Thank you for listening, and take care.
Peace. Bye-bye.